2, that council schedule an additional council meeting to be held on the 5th of August 2026 at 2 p.m. here at the Chambers for the purpose of considering community feedback proposal to submit to government by the 9th of 2026. I'm happy to move that, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Councillor Meehan.
Just a question, Mr Mayor. Why does it have to be 2 p.m? Why not a possibility of 10 a.m?
Through you, Mr Mayor, because it's a Wednesday and we have a finance performance and audit meeting scheduled
The
for 9 a.m. It's different to the date in your paper.
Oh, sorry, yes, I understand. It's 5th, not 3rd.
Thank you for explaining that. That makes it a bit easier. Okay. All right. There being no further comments, I think it's just admin really. We will vote, please. That has passed 15 votes for and none against. Okay, moving through to number 9, and I'll invite Peter Ridge up for this is around our LTP 2027-37, just around vision, goals, outcomes and indicators, and invite Stephanie Velvin too. Page 59 of your papers.
Just through you, Mr Mayor, did you want to take item 9 and 10 together?
Yes, if we could.
Okay.
They are connected.
Thank you. Kia ora koutou, everyone. The intention to take these items together is because they are quite connected. So I'll give a brief introduction to the early engagement work that we've done, that's presented in the report, and then Steph is going to talk about the vision, goals, outcomes and indicators. So the work that we've done builds on work that we've done previously for the 2024 LTP around early engagement with key organisations, stakeholders and others that we feel have value to contribute into the early engagement part of our process. We expanded it a little from 2024. There were a few additional groups included, recognising new reference groups that have been formed. We also slightly amended the format by having a bit more structure to the questions we were asking. I won't go into a lot of detail because we've included some of this information in prior workshops. We've also included some information here from the outcomes of our summer event series. So we did a little bit of work across a number of events over summer where we asked a couple of questions for residents generally to provide responses to, and there's a summary of that in the report as well. The purpose behind having this information is to inform the early work of the LTP development. This is both for your benefit and for ours as staff, as we use this to develop the strategy and the plans that we're currently working on. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to say. I think that might be all. I'll pass it over to Steph to talk about vision, goals and outcomes.
Kia ora koutou, Steph Velvin, Acting Manager, Organisational Planning and Performance. The second report presents the outputs of the LTP workshops held earlier in the year around the city vision, goals and outcomes and indicators. The recommendations provide for endorsement of these as the foundation for the strategic direction so that we can develop fuller draft strategies as the next step. The recommendations aren't aiming to lock anything down, and there will be opportunities to revise and refresh as needed through the next steps of the process. In particular with the indicators, these are the first cut, and we've gone with a slightly different structure to the current LTP based on the discussion that we had at the workshop. And we've suggested an indicator for each outcome based on what we think will provide meaning or tell us something of central importance about the outcome as related to the work we do in that area, balanced also with the availability and quality of the data. So we welcome feedback on this to inform future development there. With regards to the outcomes, just a point of clarity that we don't attach priority to the order. That's not how they're implemented currently or how we would intend to implement them in future. The wording in the report around reprioritisation was based on the conversation at the workshop, but is probably better explained as presentation choice rather than prioritisation. As noted in the report, next steps from here include the development of the draft city strategy, as well as the draft strategic action plans, which we aim to bring to council for consideration at the end of June. And the focus of the second half of the year is the development of draft programs and budgets to achieve the strategic direction and plans in order to achieve a draft LTP before Christmas. Finally, just a quick comment on the context we're working in developing this LTP. As you've discussed already today, this is an unusual time with a lot of moving parts. As mentioned earlier, it has been confirmed that we are still required to prepare our LTP by 1 July next year. So our approach at this stage has to be to plan for that as best we can based on what we know now. And good planning will put us as a city and as an organisation in the strongest position possible, whatever change comes our way. And amongst all the uncertainty, this LTP is an opportunity to provide as clear a message as possible to the community about what our local priorities will continue to be. Happy to take questions on both reports.
Thank you both. Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Steph and Peter. I've just got a question on the indicators. So that's attachment 2 for item 9. So on page 74 of our agenda, the environmental outcomes and indicators. So we've got an environment outcome, which is number 4, a healthy, thriving ecosystem, including native biodiversity and food security. But the only indicator we've got is native bird count in Turitea Reserve. And I just wonder if there's scope for an indicator that might be able to give some insight into the food security situation, because I can't see that the bird count is going to help us with that, unless we're talking about bird food security.
A lot of the work on the indicators was developed by Kian Lee, who unfortunately can't be here today. He's travelling overseas. What I could suggest, Council, is we can look into that. One of the challenges we have with indicators is making sure we have good quality data behind it. So I wouldn't want to make a commitment, but if that's an area you'd like us to investigate further, because we're looking for endorsement rather than confirmation, there's certainly scope to add if we can.
Okay, well, I mean, I think since we've recently brought in the Kai security policy, that it would be good to have that looked at a bit more specifically. Thank you.
Councillor Naylor.
Thank you. My questions really relate to the overall LTP process that we're going through and the timeframes. You've mentioned, obviously, that we're still required to prepare an LTP by the 1st of July next year. In terms of, you mentioned a draft LTP before Christmas, etc., and it's still more than a year away, and we're needing to endorse things here today. Given the shifting landscape with, you know, what we've talked about in the previous paper with, you know, local government reform, potentially things being different from 2028, do we have the option for a lighter touch LTP that focuses on the year one with less perhaps change? I mean, I'm just, sorry, that's probably a comment. Do we have that option?
No, as far as I understand, the legislation around preparing an LTP hasn't been changed or altered. It's not a feature of the reform, so we're working off, what we've always had to prepare for the LTP. We haven't been given any indication that that's different this time round.
Sorry, perhaps I should rephrase what I'm asking. Would we have the option to simply roll over the vision goals, objectives that we have in the last LTP, and assuming that we're in a time of significant change, with a view to any major shift in vision or focus being reviewed at the next time an LTP is done? Is that an option?
Well, the vision goals and outcomes are for you to set. So, yeah, that would be your decision if you wanted to continue on with what we've got currently.
So perhaps my question needs to go to you, Mr Mayor, given that the Mayor has a role in driving and proposing an LTP. Given the significant other change in the landscape, is it your intention for the thoroughness of the LTP to be as it was originally indicated, or would you see that there could be any reframing of that time frame or process?
So we've still got to do, I mean, we've asked this question multiple times with ministers, and we've just been told
Yep.
absolutely carte blanche blank, you have to stick to the law. And people have rephrased it and tried to ask the question again under a different guise, and the same answer has come back. So I think it would be very risky and unwise if we decided to push back. But in terms of what we're doing, I would, having been through the process many times along with some of the others here, this is very much a light touch in what we're doing. So I'm not thinking we're throwing out everything and starting totally again. So if you're talking about workloads and everything else, I think it's appropriate where we're at the moment.
And so the timeframes of having a draft by Christmas and determining these things now, I'm talking more about the timeframe.
Yeah, the time frame, look, we've pushed back, and I've pushed back on the staff. You've pushed back on me. Where, you all weren't available for the last scheduled workshop, and that's fine. So we've pushed that back. And look, the time frame is now getting to a stage where there probably isn't the opportunity to push back too much further. We do have to do some of the work. In saying that, though, I would say this again, I come back to my original comment, it's more of a light touch than a real chuck it out and build it up from the ground again.
Okay, I'll leave it there, thanks.
Councillor Barton.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Question around the early engagement, really. So I see the two questions that we've gone out with are focused on looking back 10 years, looking forward 10 years, obviously that positioning on a 10-year plan, which seems fine. But I just felt, is there any opportunity, is there going to be any opportunity to refresh that between now and doing the LTP, which is still a year away? Or are we going to assume that what people said last summer will still hold true 18 months on? It seems quite a long time frame.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the way we've approached it, and this takes account of the time frames that we're working under, the approach we've taken has been to kind of layer things up. So the work we did through What Really Matters was gathering one kind of perspective on the issue. Engaging through the summer event series was another way of gaining another layer of information. And while there may not necessarily be structured engagement the way we've done it in those two situations, the process of developing an LTP is constantly adding information into the equation. So one of the things we've talked about is we already have a vast data set of information about community views through other consultation exercises such as the annual budget, other more targeted consultations such as around the wastewater treatment plant and other projects that we're working on. So all of these can provide useful insights into the things that really matter for the community. And then ultimately, we do have to consult on the LTP itself, and that gives another opportunity for the community to have a say. So I think there are plenty of opportunities. The challenge we have is adding in additional structured early engagement can delay other parts of the work. And as we've talked about already, we are getting to a kind of the deadline for starting to produce plans with actions, budgets, for you to have time to consider them. So that window has more or less closed, but there still will be opportunities to feed into that process as we go through.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Sabellin.
Thank you. I also had some questions about the indicators specifically. And so, from what I understand from you today, there is scope for amendment or refinement of these, even if we endorse them today. Okay, cool, thank you. So I just had a couple of questions to help my thinking around some specific indicators, and I've narrowed it down to just the important ones. There is the environment objective number 2, and the indicator that's been chosen there is the roading network condition score. And the outcome for that, or the objective for that, was about a resilient city, including appropriate infrastructure and development prepared for the impacts of climate change. So I just wondered, what's the rationale for choosing a roading network condition score as opposed to something like stormwater network condition score for that one?
So just bear with us for a moment.
No
We'll
worries,
just have
thank you.
Quick review of that.
Oh, I have a page, sorry if that's helpful. Page 74.
So, Councillor, could I ask you to repeat your question so we can understand? Sure.
Yeah, so objective number 2, or outcome number 2, and the indicator there is we've selected the roading network condition score as an indicator for whether our infrastructure is prepared for the impacts of climate change. I just wondered what's the rationale for roading as opposed to stormwater, for example.
So, in discussion with our asset management team, who sort of manage all the data in this space, that was seen to be sort of the biggest, most useful piece of data that covered, a larger part of the city, sort of that overarching piece of information, whereas stormwater is obviously a subset. There's also still some conversations to be had, as I understand it, in the transition to CDW about what assets we retain. So, that was the best option at this stage.
Great, thank you. And just further down the table, also on stormwater, number 8 there, we've changed, or we've swapped out the previous wording for this new wording that relates to the strategy. And I was just wondering whether or not the strategy is more of the indicator rather than the objective. Previously, the objective had been, have the words here, appropriate infrastructure and development to avoid or minimise the effects of flood events. And then the indicator might be the strategy, but in this case, we've made having a strategy the actual objective, and then the indicator is whether the strategy is in place or not. You see what I mean?
Yeah, that wording was from the discussion at the workshop. So that was, developed with council. If you wanted to change that, then that would be up to you.
Cool. I might have a comment about that later. Thank you. And just a couple of other questions, just more broadly on the vibrancy indicators. There's one in there that's about the visitation, but I wondered, are we looking for increased visitation or stable visitation as opposed to just visitation as an indicator?
So that's where the targets would come in, and so I think mentioned in the report that's sort of the next phase of development where we would look at where we wanted to place some targets, again looking at I guess where we have the most influence in our work and the best quality data. So that could be a choice if you wanted to set a target around increased visitation, but an indicator can also be useful if you're looking at maintenance over time. So there's some choice around that.
Okay, thank you. In that same table, there is number 6 and 7. Oh, is it 6 and 7? Where have I got? Yes, 6 and 7, they're both perception indicators or satisfaction indicators, but I wondered whether we'd considered using attendance or usage stats rather than perception for our events and activities and for the places across the city for sport, play and rec.
We did consider event attendee numbers. But given we've got some really good data through the resident survey, we did opt to go with that. I think that possibly tells us more about the outcome rather than just the output in that sense. With the places across the city, we don't have as much data in terms of attendance. Quite a hard thing to measure. Yeah. So yeah, again, that's why we went with the data that we did have.
Great, thank you. I just have one more, which was number 4 on that table, which is about our unique heritage is preserved and promoted. And it just noted that the indicator relates to things that are protected in the district plan. And I wondered if that's, from my understanding, that's quite a static thing. It's not easy to get things protected under the district plan. And then there's some, contention around what the district plan might look like in the future. So I wondered, are there other indicators that we could use that aren't reliant on just what's in the district plan?
Yeah, that is one of the areas where we have less data to draw from. So that was sort of the best that we've found at this stage. But we will continue to consider that one and see if we can find something that will tell us something more meaningful about the outcome. Yeah, though we do have good data with regards to that indicator. And again, it might be one of those ones that good looks like, maintenance over time.
Right, yeah, like nothing worse. Okay, great. Thank you. That's all my questions. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Happer.
Thank you. I'm on the same page, sorry. I am on page 72. So I'm on the economy, looking at number, sorry, I have to put my glasses back on. Number 3, so it says enough land for infrastructure to enable housing development for business growth, and the indicator was housing lots available for dwelling. Is that City Council land, or when it just says, or is it any land?
Yes, council land. I'm getting nods from Stacey.
And so in the target it will say how much, because it's quite vague, that indicator.
Yes, yeah, that's where the targets provide a little bit more meaning. Yeah.
Okay, number 5 is the economy that embraces innovation and new ideas, and then the indicator is the survival of new businesses. Wouldn't it be the survival and maintenance of new business? We don't just want them, we want them to actually be maintained as well as survive. I don't know, I just...
I'll pass that one to Stacey.
Kia ora tātou, Stacey Andrews, City Economist. In terms of measuring that, we don't have an indicator for it, so survival rates is about the best that we have, and unfortunately we can't measure everything, so that's why we have deferred to that, although we can keep an eye on what is available to give us more meaningful information.
Okay, so it'll just stay as it is. Okay, thank you. Next, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Barn.
Sorry to pop back in, but the discussion of wording in the indicators reminded me that in vibrancy, in 1 and 2, there are 2 measures there which are by perception, and I think I've got a problem with the wording. It seems we're testing the adjective in that perception statement. Palmerston North has a vibrant city centre. Agree, disagree about vibrancy. But in the next one, Palmerston North has a creative art scene. So are we trying to test whether our art scene is creative? It seems to me that art scenes are by definition creative. So is creative the best word there? What are we actually trying to test? Healthy, strong, resourced? I don't know, but I'm not sure that the creativity of our art scene is something that the population are well placed to assess.
Yeah, that's a good question and something I've pondered as well, whether it's asking Palmerston North has a creative arts
That's what I thought it read, and I thought it can't mean that. Is that surely just yes or no?
We can have a look at that. That's one of the existing questions in our resident survey, so yeah, we can have a look at that.
Thank you.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I suppose rather than diving into specific indicators, my question would be, given the range of feedback that you've already gotten from a number of questions, is it still officers' view that we're really in a position to endorse something today, or would we be better to note something today and see something a bit more firmed up in future for endorsement?
based on the questions we've had, there's nothing, I guess, that is sort of out of the realm of what we had expected in terms of making some changes for the next iteration. So we're comfortable with endorsement still.
So am I endorsing what's on the papers then, or am I endorsing your initial response to questions that have been asked? I'm trying to figure out what's being endorsed and what weight it actually has in the process.
I think, excuse me, I think what we say when we're talking about endorsement here is the general thrust of what's going forward, because there's still a lot of work happening around the development of strategic plans and the city strategy. Endorsement at this point gives us a bit of an anchor point to work from. The feedback we've had and the comments that we've received from members here today is very useful for helping us to reshape that. When we bring back the later documents towards the end of June, there'll be another opportunity to provide more refined feedback if there are specific things we haven't quite got right. So I think we're still comfortable with endorsement because it doesn't lock you into a particular set of indicators. It gives us a way to move forward with a bit of confidence.
Cool, thank you for that. Can I then just ask a couple specific ones? One arising from the economy, along the lines of Councillor Hopta around the fifth outcome area there around embracing innovation and new ideas. How many new businesses are actually in the kind of innovation and new ideas part of the economy versus, say, the I'm opening another fish and chip shop part of the economy?
So we can measure that on an annual basis, but the information's quite lagged. So for example, the latest data that we have for the city is for March 2025. So again, this comes from the lead data, which has got about a 14-month lag on it. So we are able to measure it, but we do have to accept that there is that lag.
Have we considered measuring things like number of patents filed or something that would actually get at innovation and new ideas?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Have we considered measuring and reporting something like the number of patents that are filed in the city, which would get a more direct measure of innovation and new ideas?
We could certainly look at that as an option for a data source.
Great, thank you. See if there's any other specific ones I wanted to pick up on at this point. Yeah, and the environment, the third outcome on page 74. It's the one around more resource recovery and less waste. The indicator there is about more resource recovery, but it doesn't actually speak to whether we're getting less waste or not. I just wondered why we're not choosing to measure whether or not we're achieving less waste.
So Peter and Steph may like to add to this, but I believe that data is only collected every 3 years. I could be wrong about that, but it's just the availability of the data over timeframes, meaningful timeframes for which we can monitor it over for the LTP. But yes, we can come back to you with further information unless you've got something to add.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, the data source there would be the waste assessments, which we do every 3 years. So there is a timeliness issue with regarding to that data. It does collect more information than simply waste diverted from landfill, so we can make a note of that as to whether we can expand that indicator to include more than just waste and look at also waste minimisation as well.
Great, thanks. I'll leave it there, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Naylor.
Thanks. Just wanted to follow up a question that Councillor Hapara asked about economy number 3 outcome under the indicators on page 72. I'm not sure if I understood correctly, but I think her question was under enough land and infrastructure to enable housing development, and I think she asked, are those council-owned land? And I think you said yes, and I'm just wondering if would that not include privately owned land as well?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, sorry if I misunderstood that question, Councillor Harpter. That is privately owned as well. So through the housing business assessment, we do quarterly monitoring on how much land we have available and how much is being taken up each quarter, both for housing development and industrial commercial development as well. So that's how we are able to monitor that every quarter.
That makes more sense. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we've got a number of things here, and I just acknowledge that we're endorsing this, so it is still a live document, and a number of questions have been asked, and things can be changed if they need to be. So we've got a couple of recommendations there. First one, that council endorse a vision to inform preparation of the draft 2027-37 LTP. So we've got three options there. I'm going to test the room with A, big on opportunity and community. We workshopped this for quite a while. A number of you weren't that keen on our older vision, and this certainly still has what I'd call aspirations, but also acknowledging our sort of small city benefits of being connected and being grounded in community. Before I go too much further, is there a seconder for that? Thank you to the Deputy Mayor. Number two, that council endorse just the goals and the outcomes to inform preparation of the LTP as attachment one, and that council endorse the set of indicators. And this was relatively new work and new material in front of us, so there may be some tweaking of some of that as well as we go forward. And that's again to inform the preparation of the LTP as per attachment 2. I'll leave it at that, and we'll go through those, and then we'll go through the other recommendations for the engagement information. Are there any comments to those? Councillor Fitzgerald.
Just a quick one, asking if we can please separate 2 and 3 in the voting.
Okay, we can do that. So we'll just separate each of them. That might be easier if that's okay. Thank you. Councillor Barrett.
Yeah, thanks. Just to briefly comment, not actually around 1, I must say on 1, I think I've come to accept that the vision will be whatever it is. But I'll be prepared to back it, don't you worry. It's really to express concern around where we get to with number 3 in terms of the indicators, because consistently the theme of response that we get is, yes, we've set these beautiful goals, we've set these beautiful outcomes, but then the indicator is like, oh yeah, and we have this data in the drawer, so we'll apply this data to that outcome which relates to that goal. Whereas it would be much better to actually commit to properly measuring what matters. If it matters enough to make it an outcome, then let's measure it with something that is relevant. And I'm concerned that too often we just hear, well, we have this data available, so we'll use it, when it's not, to me, immediately clear or even possibly clear how that actually is a strong indicator for that outcome area. And I think there was a number of examples there. So I'd hope that there's substantial work put in on the indicators to get them into a position where we can really have a sense of certainty and an ability to present that to the community, that this is actually a relevant set of indicators for those outcomes. If we're an organization with a couple $100 million, well, minus 3 waters by the time we get to this, there's still a fair bit of grunt in that, and it should have an indicator set around it that is very strong and robust.
Councillor Sabellin.
Thank you. I do support those comments, and I had a lot more feedback on the indicators, but I just chose, for the sake of everyone's patience, only to just bring forward a few points. But I do expect that I can have the opportunity to air that feedback in full at some stage in the process. As per my questions, for the environment outcome, number 8, on consideration, I do prefer our original wording that we have in the current LTP, which is that appropriate infrastructure and development to avoid or minimise the effects of flood events is actually where it needs to be. And that's the objective that we're hoping to achieve through the stormwater strategy. Therefore, the adoption and implementation of the stormwater strategy should be the indicator. That's just one specific note. I also noted that the vibrancy goal has 4 out of 7 indicators that are perception indicators, and community has a similar ratio. And I'm really interested in seeing a bit more mix of data versus perception and balance that a bit better. By comparison, the economy and the environment goals don't have a single perception-based indicator. So it's the question that Councillor Barrett raised about what are we measuring versus what data do we already have to deploy, and can we kind of make that fit? I'd like it to be a little bit more I'd like it to be better aligned, I think, to what we are trying to measure. So I am hoping to be able to continue this element of the conversation as we have for the goals and the outcomes part, because I think the indicators does need a little bit more of our attention and input. Thanks.
Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, I just want to say a couple of words in support of 1A, which I think is a change of emphasis maybe for this council. And as you might expect, I'm very happy to see grounded in community as being in our vision statement. And I think it reflects the reality of this council. You know, you're always saying, Mr. Mayor, well, community's in our DNA, and it is really. And so I think it's highly appropriate to have it in our vision statement. So I'd just like to say I endorse it wholeheartedly.
Councillor Barn.
A similar theme here. When I looked at the previous vision statements in 2.2, I think all of those cover my time on council. So maybe I'll say one of the things I'm most proud of on my time on council is to reduce our vision from 64 words down to 6. I think we said in the earlier debate, bigger isn't always better. I think that is certainly true of vision statements, that in this case, small is good. But looking back over the vision statements of the last 20 years, you definitely see those themes coming through. We might have given different terminology to it over the years, but it has always been about the opportunity that we see in this city and the strength of our community being around that social infrastructure and what that actually means. So really happy to endorse your proposal of A here as the vision to inform our next LTP.
Councillor Naylor.
Thank you. I'm not too bothered, to be quite honest, about some of this detail, and I do want to recognise the work staff are doing, which is what has been indicated since late last year when we started this process. But there's something that feels quite incongruent about looking at this level of detail of something that we need to decide over a year away, following the last paper that we had, which is basically where we've got 90 days to rethink the structure of local government. And in a year where we do not know what's going to be thrown at us at any stage of this year and what might even change post-November. So I'm actually really struggling with the time frame that has been set for our LTP work. I recognise that it is for the Mayor to drive that process, and sometimes I'm not sure if how that process is really being driven. I see another workshop just dropped into our calendar for July this year for something we're confirming in July next year. I would actually favour less detail at this point. I don't know how realistic determining a draft LTP by Christmas actually is in the current environment. My preference would be to leave that till early next year myself. However, that's not my call, but I just thought I would voice those views, because when I look at some of the detail of what we've got in this paper, it does feel I'm struggling really to endorse a set of indicators and endorse goals and outcomes for something where I think the landscape may be quite different by the time we get there. So I'll support it for now. It's just going into the draft and that's fine, but just wanted to acknowledge my discomfort perhaps with us sticking to the time frame that has been predetermined or we have approved in the past, but with the amount of change, my view is that we do really need to rethink the level of detail we do and the time frame, given that it may be that only 1 year. I know under legislation, I acknowledge that under legislation we are obliged to deliver an LTP and plan an LTP. I agree, I accept that, but that does not mean we need to simply stick to the time frame that we originally determined 6 months ago when we perhaps laid that out. So I just wanted to make those points.
Councillor Harper.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge the staff for all the hard work that they have done in getting this to us today. And I just want to say, I do feel like we've lost the ambition out of our vision statement, so I won't be supporting it because of that. So, yeah, that's what I feel with that statement. Thank you.
All right, we're going to vote on these separately. So can I just acknowledge the staff as well? Look, colleagues, the timelines and all of that, a lot of that is out of our hands at times. We are legislated to do stuff. I appreciate, and I get mixed messages at times about go slow, go fast. So I'm really, if the will of the room is go slow, then tell us. But, you know, we just need to know. I appreciate there's a lot of stuff going on in the background, but essentially Palmerston North will still operate as Palmerston North. And we do need to, we've been here, many of us, for some years, so I do think there's an element of we will have to keep doing the work. In terms of the vision statement, the vision statement is what the vision statement will be, but there was, again, reading the room, I'll say that hopefully with not getting banged around, that there was a sense of wanting a little bit of change, a little bit of shifting, and look, I'm a marketer from way back, and trying to keep aspiration in there, big on opportunity to me still says we want to do stuff. 100 years ago, this place attracted Massey, and the DRI and the DSIR, and we're still big on opportunities, prosperity all around us. But we are still the community or grounded in that community. So it's sort of like the model small city. So I still think we've got a bit of everything in there. Sometimes that's hard to encapsulate in 6 words instead of 60. But I'm hoping that you may want to vote for that, and we've got at least get a strong majority to move forward. Now, remembering the rest of that is number 2 and number 3. I'm not going to speak to those further. It's really just an endorsement at this stage. I'm hearing everybody about the indicators, and I sort of share some of your views as well. So let's get this into the work plan, and we're started on the process. So hopefully you can support all 3. So we'll vote on number 1, the vision first. And that has passed 13 votes for and 2 against. Okay, we'll move to number 2, which is around the endorsement of the goals and outcomes. We'll vote on that, please. No, we're going to rerun that. Sorry, there was no abstention button there. Not that I was abstaining. Okay, we're voting on number 2 again, please. And that has passed 12 votes for and 3 against. And right, finally, number 3 is round endorsing the indicators. And we will vote on number 3, please. And that has passed 10 votes for, 4 against and 1 abstention. Okay, we come now to our city snapshot. No, sorry, before that we will receive the memo titled 2737 LTP, Early Engagement Information, and that's on page 77 through to 100 and something. give up. Anyway, it's 100 and something. And the officers have already spoken to that, so 179, thank you, councillor. So, lot in there, it's most of our priority people and reference groups, so it's quite interesting to see the depth and breadth of people we engage with. So, Councillor Barn.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say, actually, I really appreciate the work officers do in this space. This was a change for us over the last annual plan particularly, to try and get ahead of the community conversation, to give people an opportunity up front to talk to us about what really matters, as it's titled. And I think that has been successful. I think some of my concerns maybe echo some of the concerns that Councillor Naylor was talking about earlier, just about where we're at the moment, where local government is at. We're asking people to tell us what really matters a year and a half away from us doing the thing that might really matter. And I was reflecting on this, I think, earlier this week when the Ipsos survey came out for this quarter, which evidenced rapid changing in what's important to people at a grassroots level. And we saw in that Ipsos survey a concern about fuel affordability and how that added into the cost of living crisis come forward. And it just, I suppose, highlighted for me that because we're taking a long-term view in our long-term plan, which is appropriate, that we might lose some of that nuance as to what's really important in that moment for people as we go into what is a long-term plan, but what we know is really a 1 to 3 year plan with an ever-decreasing window in the current climate. So just that hesitation for me, that I'm sure we have heard what really matters at a macro level, but we might just need to think about how we bring some of those more immediate concerns into that planning as we go forward.
Thank you, councillor. Look, I think, again, just acknowledging the work of staff. When you look at it, there's reference groups, there's arts groups, there's community groups, environment groups, sport groups, business groups, cultural groups, and youth. It's wide-ranging. And Councillor Bowen's right. We're asking them what's important to them, and there's all sorts of things going on in the background. But I think it is important to get out to people and start those conversations at the very least. So, there being no other speakers, I'll ask you to vote on the recommendation there to receive the information, please. And that is passed, 14 votes for and none against. We'll move through to number 11, which is our, staying with the long-term plan, this is our city snapshot, and I'll ask around our demographics and household projections, I'll ask our city economist Stacey Andrews to speak to that. Thank you.
Apologies. Kia ora tātou. I just have to load this presentation, so I hope I'm doing it the right way. Is that coming up? Okay, great, thank you. So kia ora tātou, Stacey Andrews. This report asks for endorsement of the city snapshot, which is a document that describes our community as is, or as at the census data, and also provides an assessment of how we are tracking toward our long-term plan goals from the 2024 LTP, alongside other factors that are contributing to that performance that are outside the control of council. The second document provides population household projections for the LTP period, as well as over the 30-year infrastructure strategy period, as well as associated projections for ethnicity, age group, etc., household types, family types. So I have prepared some material to take you through with regard to the projections, which we're just trying to get up on the screen for you.
You'll have to say, we might just take a very short agenda. You'll have to email it. Something's gone wrong there to Hannah, and we'll get it up. So just give us 1 minute, please.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Chat amongst yourselves. Is there anything on them?
These slides are quite a lot of data, so they're just loading now. Won't be a moment. My apologies. Actually, I can begin talking to the modelling approach.
Please do. We've got a big agenda. Thank you.
Absolutely. So in terms of the population projections, we first looked at the Stats New Zealand offering, which was very weak in terms of population growth over the future. And after talking to Dr. Paul Spoonley, weaker than what we've experienced at any time in the past. So then we sought an alternative data source, at which time we looked at Infometrics for that data source. So we modelled their data based on 9 different scenarios of growth in the future. We also ground truth that against growth rates from the past, etc. So that's what I've presented here today, is some further information for you to consider from questions that have been asked by councillors. Oh dear, okay. So this chart here looks at the Infometrics low projection against the medium high and the Stats New Zealand high against the PNCC projections. As you can see from the low projections there for Infometrics, they're very, very weak. The Stats New Zealand projections are very weak as well. So for Infometrics low over the 30 years are 5,400. Over 30 years, the medium's 19,000 and the high is 30,500, which is incredibly strong. Stats New Zealand low projection, I'll just talk to briefly as well. So that one was actually a reduction in population of 4,000 over the 30-year period, or 26-year period, because it goes to 2053. Stats New Zealand medium was very weak at 8,700, and Stats New Zealand high was 20,400 over the 26 years. So at that point, we looked at undertaking or modelling a range of scenarios based on economic factors in the future and how our population is likely to change. And that's when we arrived at what we call the medium low high projection from Infometrics. Some of those projections we did have to amend slightly for one-person households, because the updated household projections did not, only included about half the updated assumptions from the 2023 census. So it was actually showing us at that time that our one-person household dwellings and small dwellings would decline, even though we were going to experience a considerable increase in our aged population. Could we go on to the next slide, please? So this is the population change through 2005 to 2025. So as you can see, there's a great deal of volatility within population change in Palmerston North. These lines that run across show us our average population growth over different periods of time. Over the 20 years, our population growth has been 515 per year, which is a 0.6% annual average growth rate. 15 years is 553 per year, which is a 0.6% growth rate again. Over the last 5 years, which has been a period of exceptional volatility, and we call it an outlier, Stats New Zealand estimates that our population has only grown by 600 over that time. And as you can see, there's been very strong growth in some years and a reduction in growth in other years. So that's been a 0.1% annual average growth rate. When we look at how we expect our population to change in the future, we know that we're going to require more migrant workers to come into our health sector workforce, our research workforce as well, logistics, distribution, etc. And we're also going to have net migration into the city from other parts of the country in terms of defence in particular and our tertiary institutions. So it is reasonable that we would expect the growth to be a little bit stronger than it has been on average over the last 15 years, which I selected the 15 years really as a guide because there's been a range of circumstances that have been at play over that time. So post-GFC, things were very weak. Then we went into a very weak agri-food sector time period where prices were low, etc. We had lower migration. And then we went into a higher growth period between 2015 and 2020, and then again into the outlier period over the last 5 years where we've seen that volatility between very high growth and very low. So it shows a range or an average over a time frame that has been very volatile. Next slide, please. Okay. So actually, this one has not updated all the slides, so I'll just talk to this one. Is that the new one? Yeah, okay, that was, yeah. I've updated this morning. So if we could go to slide 3, please. So I'll talk to slide 3. So what slide 3 does is it looks at the annual population growth since 2005 and then does a rolling 10-year average to reflect what those changes have been. So again, actual population growth for 5 years at 0.1%, and for the rest of the periods it's around about 0.6% over that time. Even though we've had very low growth at times and very high, it does show that what we're proposing in terms of population growth going forward is only slightly higher than what we've actually experienced in the past. And I've provided this information to give comfort that I don't believe that we are overstating the population growth that we would expect to have. We are seeing a huge amount of investment coming into our city in terms of defence, in terms of education and around the commercial industrial sector. We know that distribution and logistics also, we have a much higher proportion of our workforce here in that space that are youthful as opposed to the rest of the country. So this is why both Stats New Zealand and Infometrics are estimating or projecting that we have a much younger population over time. In fact, those younger cohorts will be growing at the second fastest rate alongside the ageing population. So what we're realistically going to have is more young people, more working age people, and older people as well. So we're going to be growing at both ends. And all the official projections do show that effect over time. Next slide, please. So this shows our 10-year annual average growth rates between all the models. I have put Statistics New Zealand low, medium and high in as well as Infometrics low, medium and high, and our own projections for statistics for the PNCC projections, which is slightly higher at 0.7% over the first 10 years and continue that way. I have got 2053 in there as a rolling 10-year just because that's where Stats New Zealand projections end. They don't go to 2057. And in 2057, slightly higher over that 10-year period as Te Utanganui beds in, and we get that greater level of population growth over that period of time. Next slide, please. So this one here also I wanted to address Paul Spurnley's very good presentation last year that talked about how we will go into natural decline in 2037. Absolutely right that we'll see a decline in births versus deaths over the period of time, but the updated Stats New Zealand projections actually show a reversal of that now. And although we are going to see that decline across the different growth scenarios, it's actually going to stay positive in Palmerston North due to our younger population. And I've actually got that on the next slide. So I'll ask you to move on to the next slide, please. So that's the projections, the updated projections there from Stats New Zealand that show across all scenarios births are expected to exceed deaths in Palmerston North, which is why the population components that we've put forth reflects that trend over time across all projection scenarios. So that's all my slides. I'm very happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Stacey. Could I just ask, do you think Stats New Zealand, it's incredible how some of those stats sort of come us out going backwards. Is there any intel on that? I mean, is it because our jobs, we've got quite a large commuting population and perhaps they're not on the ground so they don't realise some things?
There's been an age-old problem with Statistics New Zealand that they underestimate the population here in Palmerston North. Some of that is because we have a large temporary population in terms of Defence Force and also our tertiary education. So it has been a long-standing problem. I think if we go back to 2023, the projections there were that we had a population of 94,400. There's a lot of volatility, and every time they have a revision, it's quite stark, the revisions. So unfortunately, we can't really deter from the official statistics as a starting point, but I would suggest that it doesn't capture some of our transient population.
When I saw them, they didn't really have much idea, mind you, those people are no longer at Stats New Zealand. They didn't really have a policy or method on international students, and it was very loose. They didn't really understand that Defence Force could, a battalion could be deployed, and when people were counted, they literally weren't here, but they were here. So, do you think that may have had an impact on it?
Yes, I absolutely do. They do. Stats New Zealand uses a very narrow set of assumptions to guide their population projections. So that definitely makes a difference. And that's why when we look at these projections, what I generally do is I go through all of it. So you go from population to household, ethnicity, age group, types of families, types of households, and you know what you expect to see. And when you don't see that flowing through on the models, you know that you need to overlay that local knowledge over that. Now, unfortunately, that doesn't mean, I don't think I would get away with actually changing the base number as such, but it does provide an opportunity for us within the range of projections that we have to say, well, actually, we know that we've got investors in this town that are building retirement homes, for example. So Stats New Zealand is projecting that we won't have that kind of impact here, but we know that we're getting that type of investment. We know we're getting a lot of investment that is going to support productive capacity over time, employment and income growth in the city. So we overlay that and we model ourselves really within that range, how we think the future will look for our city.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Stacey. I'm trying to figure out how to word this question, but can you help me square the circle that we're being told that Japan's got a declining population, Korea's got a declining population, Germany's got a declining population, our birth rate's below replacement rates, we've only got net migration of 25,000 people last year, and we expect that of those 25,000 people, 10,000 of them are going to be in our city in the next 10 years. Like, how are we realistic in assuming that we're going to grow to 100,000 people, or is this wishful thinking?
The projections to 2037 are 6,300 people for the city, and that is based on both natural increase, and we do also assume that we will require migration into the city to serve our workforce, because you're right, in particular European New Zealanders are having less children, which means a decline in the European population by both proportion and number. So we will rely on a workforce in the future for a greater number of Māori population, Pacifica, and also migrants from overseas, which will also push up our Asian population here and across New Zealand.
Yes, I guess I'm trying to understand why we'd be bucking the trend when, I thought those birth rates you put up showed us well below replacement value. I didn't have a chance to study that slide, but why would we assume that we're going to, our job market is going to grow to a point that we need 6,300 more people if the country as a whole has got a declining population?
The projections for New Zealand overall, I've only looked at the ones going backwards actually, but the ones for New Zealand from Informatics overall are actually quite strong.
Okay.
So we do have a higher level of net international migration here because of our health sector, research sector and tertiary education, which pulls in migrants from overseas. Of course, we also have our refugee program as well. So 6,300 on the back of the projections overall for New Zealand are relatively, conservative. I would say they're not, they are more conservative than what we had in both the 2024 and the 21 LTB projections. We have taken a slightly more conservative approach and measured approach to looking at the factors that are impacting on migration. I think also we're going through a period of time where the New Zealand economy is weak. There's not the jobs that are available for migrants, but we know how that changes when economic conditions change, and we would expect that to change over time.
All right, thank you very much, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Barrett.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Stacey, for your effort putting in the presentation and into the reports. First question is just to understand which number we're actually being asked to endorse on page 186 of our papers in Table 1. It suggests that there's going to be 7,604 new residents in the 10 years ahead. And then on page 206, it's 6,300 residents. So which one are we actually putting up?
Okay, so what we're required to do is we assess what we believe our population growth to be, and then under the National Policy Statement for Urban Development, we're then required to plan for 20% more than that in the between the short to medium term, which is the first 10 years. So that outlines what we're anticipating as well as what we need to enable land supply, etc., to cater for that population growth, and that's a requirement from the MPs for urban development to ensure competitiveness of land markets. So both of them are valid, but for different reasons.
Okay, so the 7604 is the plus 20% then?
That's correct, okay. Yes.
Cool, that makes sense, thanks. And I guess just in general terms, can you help us understand how setting a population projection actually ends up driving kind of budget demand in the long-term plan?
It is very important for asset management planning in particular and for the infrastructure strategy, which then flows through to the timing of projects. So in that sense, we need to understand how our population is most likely to change so we can put in place budgets to cater for that growth. So that is the connection there. Recognising, of course, that there is a lot of volatility, and we recognise that, and these are updated every 3 years due to those factors. They're required by law to be updated every 3 years.
So is there kind of rule of thumb, like if we go Informatics, high, medium, low, like is that the difference between, I don't know, 5% per annum average rates increase versus say 3 or 7?
I believe that it only has an impact at the margins, and the Chief CFO may want to comment on that, because we still have an element of land value rating. It's less sensitive is my understanding, but I'm not sure if Cam would like to add to that.
Through Mr. Chair, can you just repeat the start of the question? I heard
thanks, Cam. And just in general, trying to understand the relationship between those lines on the graph of, say, we go Informatics high versus Informatics low, what the knock-on effect is in terms of kind of the average % increase in rates that we would be seeing across the life of an LTP.
Yeah, the growth is a underlying assumption that's built into the long-term plan, but in terms of the impact, I guess, on rates, the way we describe the change in rates from year to year is the change in the total rates revenue for the council. Yeah. Within that, there will be any changes to the rating base. And we do have to make some allowances around that, whether there's some properties that have change to residential and so on. But it's, in terms of the grand total of things, it's a pretty small component.
Thanks for that comment.
Through you, Mr Mayor, if I can just add that through the LTP process or the annual plan process, and we can also review the significant forecasting assumptions at that time, so we can defer capital spend if it's not required, if the growth hasn't met the projections that we've put in place.
Great. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
All right. Thank you, Stacey. Appreciate that. We finally got there. So, colleagues, we've got some recommendations there that Council endorse. The city snapshot, Palmerston North 2020, attachment 1 is a key strategic demographic, social and economic profile to inform the preparation of the LTP. And that Council endorse Palmerston North's population, household and associated projections, attachment 2 as a basis for strategic planning for the city over the period 27 to 57 to inform the preparation of our 2027-37 LTP. I'm happy to move those, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Look, colleagues, I think there's always been an issue, and I don't know why Stats New Zealand do seem to have an issue with Palmerston North. I look at other places like Whangarei, Southland, Nelson, Tasman, don't seem to have the same issues that we do, probably because their populations are a lot older. And I do think the transient nature, the youthful nature and the diversity here has its real benefits for us, but it probably throws in some curveballs for them in Wellington. When I look at Tauranga, it's growing at nearly 4.5, and Hamilton at 4.8, nearly 5%. We're not in that space. We don't want to be either. But I think overall a sensible option of that 0.7 is probably about right. And there have been issues with that data, and we are growing, but it is slow, definitely. But above all, it is sustainable. I think when you stack up the job numbers, which, and I acknowledge the work that Stacey's done in this space, and I'm feeling good because we have a really good set of internal data coming back at us. But if we had to rely on Wellington, we'd be all over the place. But our job numbers are up, our health numbers say a different thing, and our consents especially say a different thing. So all those stats indicate that we are still growing as a city, even given some of the different data coming from Wellington. I do wonder too, because of our slowness in sections, some of the land availability has driven our working population outside the city boundaries. So they work here, they come in here, and I think Stacey will have the real numbers, but I think it's something like 15,000 people come into the city every day to either work or study, and they don't live here. They live over the borders, and that adds complexity to our issues. But look, I think this is a fair and reasonable way of dealing with it. We've done this before with what I'd call a hybrid model. At 0.7 is still keeping us growing. It's very sustainable. It doesn't impact hugely on where we're going with things. It's on the fringes, as Stacey's advice was to us, but it's important that we do have that in our projections. So look for your support. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly appreciate your comments, including the reminder about the amount of commuters and those that come into the city from around us. I do appreciate as well Stacey's effort to share with us some of the thinking behind the projections that are there, because it has been noticeable and interesting to me that when we look at our long-term plan over the last 9 years, we were forecasting about 1,000. The reality is that we can now see that track record was around 500. So we had I would say, a consistent upward bias in that model for some time. We've come down to 630, and I guess it's debatable whether or not that 630 is even realistic when our recent baseline is more around 120, up to 500, but at least it's back to being a 3-digit number, not a 4-digit number, and so we'll see how well the model bears out in the future. I do appreciate the effort that staff put into finding the line between realism and ambition.
All right. Okay, thank you. We've got our recommendations there, 1 and 2, and I'll ask you to vote, please. And that is passed, 14 votes for, with 1 abstention. All right, councillors, we're going to just slightly change, and we're going to bring number 14. I've got people coming for the nature calls, but we'll just go to number 14 first. So this is around Arena 5 development. That's on page 275 of your papers. I ask Glenn Bunny to come forward to speak to that, please.
Kia ora koutou, Glenn Bunny, Manager, Property and PMO. Anna hopefully making her way down as well. She's probably just been caught a little bit unawares with the change, but if she arrives, she'll come and join me as well. Expertise that was required outside of our ability with contamination assessment and geotech, but the rest of the feasibility and project management investigation itself has been brought fully in-house. So key focus aspects of that work were to establish full capital and operational cost profiles, to confirm operational questions and queries with regards to how an air dome in particular might work, being a new technology to us all. Those investigations included resilience to damage, weather events, what fail-safe systems air domes entail, what noise and light spill considerations we'd have to think about. They are a positive air pressure facility, so does that impact any of the intended uses at the end of the day? Can lighting systems work for the different codes and uses with regards to badminton and different sports, etc.? And there was a lot of time spent on investigating the functionality of timber sprung floorboards as well, as a key requirement of the end users that was specified. So where we got to after all of that work was recommending to the Stair Co last week to proceed with an air dome technology for the new Arena 5 project. The Stair Co endorsed that recommendation, and as such we now bring it back to the full council to recommend that that is the direction that we proceed with. Key critical aspects of why we arrived at that position as officers were a lower capex profile for a build rather than a traditional. They have similar 50-year whole of life costs, but energy consumption for an air dome is quite a bit significantly less than a traditional build year on year. We've confirmed it will operationally function for us and meet end user requirements as well. It's a new and exciting and innovative product to the city, so as well as providing the sports facility itself, we feel there's an added benefit here in terms of a strategic placemaking aspect for the city, bringing something new and different, which could serve to not only secure existing custom that we have, but because it's new and different and exciting, we might hopefully attract new revenue streams and new events to the city as well. And we've had feedback too through the process that having a facility like an air dome as part of the arena complex is also highly sponsorable. So if we're looking for new naming right partners for the arena complex, our interest in an air dome solution has tweaked quite a bit of interest out there with regards to naming right partners coming in. And the draft terms that have been spoken about preliminarily are quite exciting. So they're quite favourable annual amounts for reasonable periods of time as well, which is good. So the work to date has got us here today where we're recommending the air dome. The cost profiling is as accurate as we can do it now, but the procurement process to follow would be when those costs are confirmed. And next steps would involve obviously going, if you support our recommendation, going to the procurement team, preparing tender documentation, going out to market and undertaking that process, which we can bring back, of course, to the floor for your final decisions. And through that process, being a type of design and build, there would be further design detail that would be worked through with a preferred supplier when we got to that point. So we have the option to have amenities within the dome or outside the dome. So there's lots of different functionality aspects, where the glazing goes, where the entrance airlocks are, etc. So we'd work through that finer detail, the location of mechanical plant, etc. We'd work through that in the next stage of the process. And just lastly, to summarise, I guess, the key considerations for us. So CapEx for an air dome, we've modelled it about 13.5 million versus traditional for a similar facility at 18.4. OPEX whole of life is similar at about 12 million over a 50-year horizon. So the componentry of that is different, but we've tried to make it like for like. So where a roof replacement might be required for a traditional building, we've put in a dome skin replacement to be fair and reasonable. The square metre rate for the air dome, we've modelled at 3,067 per square metre versus 4,556 for traditional. And then the total size of what we're getting for the 13.5 for air dome is 4 courts, but 4,400 square metres. And for traditional at 18.44, it's still 4 courts, but 4,048 square metres. So just to summarise, I guess, some of those key quantums for you. Anna's arrived, happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Councillor Kuru.
Hi, I was just wondering if you could tell me about the member feedback. What was their feedback for the air dome?
We've engaged significantly with end users. We had some key considerations, as I've outlined, with regards to their operational requirements. So there was never, I guess, opposition towards or favourability towards one or the other. They were very forthcoming with their end-use requirements. So how many courts were required, runoff areas, seating, storage, lighting requirements for different codes, so up lighting or down lighting so that visibility works properly. The timber sprung floor is a big one, so we all agreed that a timber sprung floor is required for the codes to bring those events, particularly national events, to the city. So we worked through all of those aspects of both traditional and air dome. And as I say, the last 6 months was spent highly focusing on air dome technology because it was new and we needed to grow an understanding of that.
What were the specific feedback from, say, the basketball, netball and volleyball members?
Yep, so I met with Sport 102 and those code leads last week following the staircut. I think it was Friday afternoon, maybe Thursday, with John Lynch, the managing operator at Arena. We walked through all of those aspects and there was general support for the direction that we were proposing. There were no concerns required with where we'd got to post-staircut and what we were coming to council today to recommend.
Okay, so they didn't have any concerns with the running costs, the future running costs of the dome?
Yes, running costs were raised. They were pleased to see that the CapEx profile for this building methodology and the profiled operational cost wouldn't be higher than a traditional build, and therefore there was a reasonable expectation that the charge rates wouldn't need to increase for them to have access to the facility.
Okay, so they didn't have, so all of their concerns have now been, they no longer have those concerns, so they feel comfortable with an air dome.
When I walked out of that meeting last week, yes, I felt there was general agreement that there was comfort with an air dome.
You felt, or they said that they're fine with an air dome, that's their preference?
They said to me they were very happy for the council to proceed with an air dome solution.
Okay, the other question I have is around the size of the air dome. Is there room for spectators?
Yes, there is higher runoff area to the sides and the end of an air dome facility due to the structural shape of the dome. So the footprint is larger than a traditional build, and we factored in space for storage and amenities and change rooms, etc., inside, if that's what the decision is at the end of the day, as well as other aspects that you would have ordinarily seen if it was a traditional solution.
Okay, are we able to get some sort of stats or have a look at the build of a normal or a traditional type of building? Is there a reason that there's not any information on a traditional building, just the air dome?
In terms of test fits and sort of cross sections,
Yeah.
we can circulate those. We have factored all those in. They've been worked through the STECO. We've modelled those. One of the key considerations is obviously making sure we've got the height clearances for the different codes, so we've profiled all of those. And both can work in an air dome and a traditional build, but we can circulate those cross sections and images if that's of interest.
Okay, I've just had some questions come to me about that there was a building discussed over at JFK, that there's been a big one done for 13 houses that they can fit in there for presidential homes, and it would have been a good comparison for something that we could have put at the arena for a similar price to the air dome. I was just wondering if that had been circulated with you guys.
I have no knowledge of that,
No
sorry.
knowledge of that. Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Oh, and also the flooring. So is it so with the timber sprung flooring now, and they're happy with that, there's no, is it a permanent fixture, or is it going to be pulled back up and dropped down? Is it one of those?
It's a permanent flooring solution. The query was that what is the risk of deflation of the dome? Yeah. And if a dome did deflate, what risk does that pose to a timber sprung floor? So like a camping tent, if it deflates and lies on the ground in particular weather conditions, it condenses, and then the condensed moisture onto the timber sprung floor would be a potential issue. We went to a couple of different providers, technical teams, and asked about rate or risks of deflation, and if they've ever had that experience, and whether there was a risk to timber sprung floors in these facilities. And the providers, manufacturers came back and said there's no risk, let alone any knowledge of deflations globally. And they have timber sprung floors in many of these facilities around the world. So on that basis, we didn't feel there was an issue there.
Is there another one in Napier or the Hawke's Bay? Is there any other in New Zealand?
There is one at Hamilton Boys High that the project team visited. That's got an artificial turf in it, not a timber sprung floor. But we haven't gone further abroad to undertake other site visits as a project team.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, team. Just two questions. One, I just want to make sure my understanding is correct. So the operating expense of both of these facilities is relatively comparable, or is one more expensive than another?
We've modelled a whole of life cost profile across both as being fairly even, around $12 million over 50 years.
I'll just clarify with that, because whole of life, my understanding is that includes operating and renewals. So I'm just trying to separate the two of them out. The operating side of things, are they both about the same, or is one considerably more expensive to operate than another?
The modelling we've undertaken is based on for an air dome, a provider opened their books, found a similar sized facility in a similar climate as ours. They gave us their energy consumption data. We've then modelled it to our rates and costs, and then used the arena's existing information. And we've modelled that an air dome is more cost efficient to run in terms of electricity consumption per annum compared to a traditional build.
Excellent. My other question was, I can't remember if I just missed this the other week at the steering group, but the capital cost of a traditional build is 18.4 rather than the budgeted 17.5. So would that mean if we wanted to go with a traditional build, we need to increase the budget over the next 2 years by 900,000?
Increase the budget or de-scope
Okay.
the project?
All right, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Thanks, Glenn. Just some questions about safety, first of all. What's the fire risk for a dome like this?
Good question, councillor. It was another question we asked around safety, but also the risk of vandalism. And the membranes themselves are fire retardant, so you have to try, you have to have a concerted effort if you were to actually try and create a fire with a dome facility. Similarly, we asked about the risk of somebody putting a sharp object through the membrane, and again, it's highly resistant to that sort of damage or destruction.
So it was more thinking in terms of fire, if people were in it at the time, is it more of a risk in terms of not having time to evacuate people or anything like that?
We don't think so. It'll have to comply with code, obviously, for fire ingress and egress. So all of those systems and considerations would be designed and built into the facility the same as a traditional build.
Okay, cool. And in terms of resistance to high wind, since we're proposing to site it in Palmerston North, do we have any information about how they stand up to high wind or the types of winds we might get here?
They have provided that information to us. So I think it was 200 km an hour wind rating. If there is, so these domes are all over the globe, and they are in areas of the world that are subject to hurricane seasons, etc. They're in climates that are -20 to +50. The evidence that we've been provided that's informed our decision is they will perform well in our climate and our weather conditions. If there is something significant that's forecast, you can deflate them. You reverse the system, you can deflate them. There's a system that goes over the top of the deflated dome, and you can hold it down. But the information that we've been provided by the tech teams of a couple of the providers is that it shouldn't be a risk to us in this locality.
Okay. Would we have any difficulty getting insurance for it?
We don't think so.
Okay. And then I understand that you've put a note in the paper that you don't think noise will be an issue, but I understand that noise of the fans to keep these domes inflated can be quite high in a residential area, and you've got people living opposite. So when you're saying that you don't think noise will be an issue, is that noise from the events that might be in it, or is that noise from the fans that are required to keep it inflated?
Yeah, good question. We've considered both. So what is the operational noise, considering that they run 24 hours because they're a positive air pressure system? We wanted to understand whether that background noise of without an event would be, create issues, particularly because we're on the boundary of a residential neighbourhood. We're cognizant of that. So the render you can see on the screen at the moment is a quasi render of what it would look like in situ, and you can see on the other side of the dome on the picture that's the plant, mechanical plant situated there. So we can help avoid noise, cross-boundary noise, by strategically placing the mechanical plant in the right place. Yeah. There are options to then have an insulated box built around that mechanical plant as well to help dull that noise down too. But what we've heard from the operators is operational noise is not any more than normal mechanical plant that you'd run on a traditional build. And the cost profile for the air dome solution that's in your papers includes a dual membrane dome solution with the highest insulation product that we can put into it. So that helps with noise, light, and thermal regulation.
Thank you. That's me done.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Glenn. Couple questions left on my list. One is to understand on the capital side, the traditional build seemed to have toilets and a kitchen and office and that kind of stuff built into it. Is it a like-for-like comparison in terms of the cost factors that are shown in the paper? Or are we getting the same thing if we go with an air dome?
We're getting the same thing, but the methodology might be slightly different. So we've made sure all of this is like-for-like as best as possible. For an air dome solution, we would probably go to a prefab toilet or changing room facility and locate it within the dome, or there's an opportunity to locate it outside the dome, and then it can be utilised for other arena events as well without activating the dome itself. So the cost profiles are about the same, the size footprints have been modelled all to be the same, it's just the way that you construct them is slightly different.
And all those extra bits that you would need to make the air dome have that functionality are in the costs that are there?
Fully costed, including quite a healthy contingency at this point in time.
I'm just interested in terms of local jobs, I suppose, and, you know, signing big checks and sending a lot of ratepayer money out of the community. Kind of how much of the whatever $1 million would be for the air dome is actually just a check that leaves the community, we never see it again?
So the air dome quote itself, I think, was 10.9 for the dome facility. So the balance of that work is mainly in the civil preparation, which would have been similar for a traditional build or an air dome facility. We would look to, we would encourage head contractors to procure local firms for that. But the dome itself, the manufacturers that we've identified are offshore. So that spend would be going offshore to those.
And that's about 10 million?
Yep. Okay. Yes.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Naylor.
Thank you. Just quickly, you mentioned something about being able to get sponsorship and that there was a favourable situation. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
So in addition, I guess, to looking at the facility itself, we've tried to, as a project team, leverage a new build for further opportunities. One of those was seeing if we went with a dome or a traditional build, what companies, entities might be out there that would look to take on a naming right sponsorship role for the arena facility brought about by something new and innovative like an air dome in New Zealand. So the work that we've been doing in that date suggests that there would be strong interest, and we could potentially have an arrangement with a number of interested parties at this stage who have registered, I guess, preliminary interest. And we looked at that as an opportunity to offset OPEX costs, but also return, you know, as a non-rate revenue back to arena or to council.
Thank you. So what sort of amounts could we expect, and was there any opportunity for sponsorship towards the capital cost, or are you just suggesting only towards the operational cost?
Only operational at this stage. I guess through the procurement process we could look for different capital contributions and sponsorship opportunities. And the terms, the figures as a minimum, I guess, have been talked about in terms of sponsorship naming right deals are around the $200,000 mark, and 5+5 terms. But that's all very early stage conversations.
Okay, thank you. Just looking at 4.9 on page 281, it talks about that the draft budget for the coming year is 6 million, noting that that budget is subject to annual budget approval at the 3rd of June meeting. I presume that that 6 million was based on the project budget of 17.5 million. So if council was to endorse the 13.5 dome option, what would be the cost in the coming year, or how would that be spread across the next 2 years, I presume?
We could do both. So we pending a decision today and a direction provided to officers, we will go and undertake work with the finance team, come back to you to rephase that budget accordingly. So an air dome, if we went with an air dome, from placing an order for the fabrication of the dome, I think it's about 2 months of fabrication. It then needs to be shipped from Europe to New Zealand, but once it's here and it's on site, it's a 10-day installation. So we could put it up, we could have this project complete this financial year, or we can decide to stage it over 2 financial years if that's preferred.
So would that be a separate decision next week at the annual budget if we were to progress that today?
Yeah, I think to give us time and be realistic with it and give us a little bit of buffer, I think spreading it over 2 financial years is probably the sensible thing to do for the project.
Okay.
But we can take direction on that, Councillor.
Okay. Now, there's a council resolution from the annual budget process that was asking this chief executive to come back with options to have a rates increase of no more than 3.9%. And at this point, I don't think we're aware of what will be coming back to us next week. Would any of that be including projects such as this one?
Through Mr Mayor, I don't believe, unless Scott tells me otherwise, I don't believe we've altered the budget for this particular project at this point in time, because we weren't in a position to be able to preempt any decision making that you might make today. And given that we are having to prepare the agenda for that meeting and do the publication for that meeting by about today, we haven't been able to factor in any phasing of that program different to what you've seen.
So the assumption is still a $6 million capital for the 26-27 year, is that correct?
Yes, I believe so. Yep.
Okay, and just in terms of the wording of the options in this paper to proceed with procurement, is it appropriate to proceed with procurement prior to confirmation of an annual budget?
Well, I guess through you, Mr Mayor, given that you're going to have the discussion about the annual budget next week, I would, your discussion next week is close enough to this decision that I don't think we will be going out to procurement between now and next week.
So should it have words like subject to confirmation of the annual budget, or is that not needed? I'm just trying to think what the appropriate order is. The Mayor's indicating that could add.
Through you, Mr Mayor, obviously if you don't approve the budget next week for this program, then procurement won't be able to proceed.
Okay, thank you, that's helpful.
All right. Okay, thank you. Well done, Scott. It was a good super sub off the bench. All right, recommendations to Council. The Council received the report titled Arena 5 Development 6 Monthly Update presented to Council today, 27th of May, and 2, that Council agreed to A, proceed with the procurement of main contractor, subject to annual budget decision to design and construct an air dome building for the new Arena 5 facility, option 1. I'll look to move that, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Look, colleagues, it's for those that have been on the project steering group, it's been a long time getting to this point, and acknowledge the 5 councillors that are on that, and it's been a bit of a journey, but I think we've got to somewhere which should make everybody pretty happy. It's new and innovative, and that does come with, I suppose, some challenges of understanding exactly what it is. But there's over 2,000 of these all over the world, and they haven't sort of made their way to New Zealand, really, in a sense. There's some similar type models, but not this particular state-of-the-art structure at Hamilton. And there is one in Australia, which is an older version of this. So it's fairly new in this part of the world, but it's very, very proven overseas. It gives a great indoor community facility that really does save on cost and efficiency. I think our officers, and I acknowledge the work that's gone on, because there's been a heck of a lot of work going on in the background to really test every assumption. As I said, it shows some innovation, and I think it leads to potentially, as CET exits our naming rights of Arena, opportunity for some naming right sponsors. And there is also opportunity for the capex of this through our commercial team and the external fundraising, and I know those conversations are continuing. So look, I think it's a really good, thorough process we've been through, and it's going to really continue to add to the vibrancy, not only in a sporting and sort of event sense for Arena, but it will continue to secure our events that we have there in a national sense, but also a much needed community facility as well. So I hope you can support it. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's like you, it's quite exciting to get to this point. It's interesting you use the word new and innovative. It's not all the time councils get to do something new and innovative for New Zealand, but as you say, there are thousands of these around the globe. So we're not being the test dummies or doing something that's never been done before. This is well-tested and proven technology internationally. There's a few things that I think are worth pointing out in this, that this may not just be cost neutral, but this may be a money maker in terms of sponsorship opportunities for this arena. If you look at the anticipated energy costs of around 34,000, cleaning costs of 10,000, and I assume there will be other costs in there, of course, staff contribution of time, cleaning internally, all of that sort of thing that goes into it. If that can be offset with a 200,000 plus per year operational sponsorship that then contributes back toward the running and maintenance of the arena, that is a darn good outcome for this city. There is no doubt that there is a clear sporting need in our community, with tournaments needing to be run later into the evenings and earlier into the mornings, with students having to train and practice on some rather irregular hours that make it difficult for parents. We've done a variety of facility needs assessments, and all have shown that court space is the key towards supporting our arena facility and supporting sport in our community. It's also a key in terms of attracting events for economic growth in our city and bringing people into Palmerston North. As we often say in this chamber, we may not have lakes and mountains, but what we do have are darn good sporting facilities. Now, I am a firm believer that there are external funding opportunities, and that I wouldn't want us to lose sight of that as we go through the process, certainly in terms of operational subsidy, but also, I believe, in terms of capital contribution. And so it's reassuring to hear from our property team that that is one of the things that they will be continuing to consider as they go through this and work on. The thing that has to be said is that if we can have a project delivered for $5 million to potentially, I mean, that includes a $1.5 million contingency, so potentially $5 to $6.5 million less than what we'd originally budgeted for, that is a fantastic result for our city and our arena. I'm not of the view that we just tear down Barbara and Bell Hall once this is built, and so potentially a project like this, with savings like this, gives us an opportunity to preserve and do the maintenance required so that this facility can be a yes and, not a and or. However, that will be a decision for future councils down the track, of course, assuming that these results materialise, which I've got confidence from our team they will. This will be a fantastic project to get started, and looking forward to seeing it up.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Contrasting view, I quite like the traditional build, to be quite honest. There's a couple factors in that. One is that this is a lot of tons of plastic, which are not a renewable resource in any particular way, and will be generating plenty of microplastics and volatiles and everything else for the players that enjoy it, should it go ahead. The other one is that I've always found the cost of these kind of infrastructure projects, sports infrastructure in this case, to be eye-watering. And the reason that I've been able to talk myself into that in the past is that it's eye-watering, but it's local contractors doing local work, employing local people, etc. And here we're looking at a $10 million check for a mail order building. And to send $10 million of ratepayers' money out of this community rather than keeping it circulating in through the contractors and businesses that would typically be involved in the construction of buildings is a concern to me. I know Sears and Roebuck invented the mail order house, well over 100 years ago, and they've come and gone, and maybe this is just the next generation of mail order buildings, but I'd much prefer to see us supporting local rather than $10 million to Europe.
Councillor Naylor.
Thank you. I think that the cost of this under option A or under B are both quite eye-watering, to be honest. We're talking about $13.5 million being 100% debt funded, 100% funded from our ratepayers, or 17.5 or 18.4 million being 100% debt funded or funded from our ratepayers. So either way, it's incredibly eye-watering. Councillor Wood talks about savings. There's no savings here. This is just a slightly smaller amount being debt funded. So I think that the sum of 13.5 million is definitely a lot better than 18.4 or 17.5. But in the current environment, the option I would support at this stage would still be C, with a view to reconsider this under the LTP. I realise that's not going to be the majority view today, but in voting against this, I wanted to be clear that it wasn't because I preferred option B, it's because I do prefer option C.
Councillor Kiru.
I think we definitely need this building. It is a fantastic resource that is needed for our community, for our sporting community. I'm not going to support the air dome just because most of the people I've spoken to do not support the air dome. And also I agree with Councillor Barrett, I would rather see the money being recirculated in our community. Thank you.
Councillor Harpiter.
I fully support the work that the project team have done, and I think the air dome is the best option that they've provided for us. I think, and I congratulate them on bringing the project in-house and basically getting rid of the consultants that they had. I think well done on you, because that's what, as us as a council, we asked them to do, and they've done that with this project, so well done on doing that. I think this is a project that it's not a favourite among some people around the table, but it is a project that a lot of the community want. We've got a lack of space for courts, and that's what this is going to provide, is more courts for our community. They really, really need it, and this air dome is the way to do it, and I really think that if we could look at option A, that would be the best option. So I just, fully support option A, and thank you for the hard work that you have done.
Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'll stand and support this. I support continued investment in the arena, and this is much more than about a building. It's about, one of the city's major assets and an important economic driver for the city. Can our city afford this new building? Perhaps a bigger question should be, can our city afford not to? Every time we host regional tournaments, national competitions, exhibitions and major events, we're not only filling courts and grandstands, but we're filling hotels, motels, cafes and restaurants and supporting business right across the city. Team supporters, officials, families, they travel here, they stay here. They spend money in their shops, and throughout Palmerston North, the economic benefit far reaches the arena gates. Our facilities have long been leaders in this country, and there's a reason for that. Generations of this council before us have invested in our showgrounds and the arena precinct because they understood those facilities were never simply buildings on a balance sheet, they were investments in the future of the city. Today we continue to benefit from that foresight, for those decisions help build Palmerston North's reputation as a destination for sporting events and community activity. We inherited those opportunities because previous councils had the vision and the courage to invest in the future. If we stop investing ourselves, we risk standing still while other centres continue moving ahead. We have a responsibility not only to think about today, but about the generations that come after us. And I believe this is one of those moments where we have an opportunity to continue building on the legacy that others created before us, and to continue to invest in the future success of our city. Thank you.
Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I won't be up for too long. Councillor Arnott stole it all. But as we know, arena is one area that brings finances into our city. That looks after our retailers, our moteliers, our cafes, and supports them really well. You need to invest in anything that's bringing you in money. And this is one thing in our city that does bring us in money, so we need to invest. And the dome is the best option. It's been bashed out thoroughly. And gone through every, and I've got to commend the officers as well for the work they've done on it. They've answered every single question that's been put to them around it. They've gone and done the work, they've done the homework on it, they put meetings off for down the track till they got the information we needed to see and have. And coming in at a better price than it is now is a saving to our community, rather than going, and I actually agree with Councillor Barrett on putting it into local and the local workers and that building a normal build. But the savings we're making here, it's the smartest way to go. It's innovative and it's a way to go. And if we don't go, one of the other cities in New Zealand will go ahead of us and they'll make the jump and they will do it. And then they will get those teams that are coming here regularly with their families and supporting our community. They will go to those places. And once we lose them, we lose them.
Councillor Bowen.
Thank you. I won't repeat the comments that others have made, and I probably wasn't really expecting to speak to this, but this is my very superficial take on it. It looks really cool, and that's that's a really good thing for our city. Palmerston North, we're not known for our coolness. Well, it's not in our top 5 anyway. But this is, it's creative, it's innovative, it looks good, and it provides a unique selling point for the arena in an era where we need to differentiate ourselves in the market. And we know that people, other cities, are looking at our events, looking at them, thinking they can have them, and we don't want them to get to take events from us. We want to retain what we want to retain. I think this is a really interesting way of strengthening our offering, and I'm delighted that it comes in at $5 million less than the other offer. So that seems like a win-win to me.
Councillor Johnson.
Yes, another person not known for their contribution to sporting debates, but still, I just think that this is an excellent suggestion. And I'll be honest, when I came to read the paper, I was very sceptical of it. But the officers have, as I think Councillor Mayor said, the officers have really researched this well. They were able to answer every question that we asked of them about safety concerns and other issues and costs and so on. And I think Councillor Bowen has really hit the nail on the head. It does look cool. It's something innovative. It's something interesting. And the question of whether or not it's a saving depends on where you come from, I suppose. As my husband used to say to me when I came up with clothes from the sales, well, you've saved more than you can afford. But ultimately, we had a budget in the long-term plan, and this is coming in millions of dollars under that budget. And it can't be seen as anything other than a saving in those terms, given that we've agreed to build it one way or another. So I'm not sure what there's not to like about this, to be quite honest. I'm quite happy with it, and I thank the officers for their work, and I'm looking forward to seeing it going up.
Thank you, colleagues. Look, just in summing up, make Palmy cool again. We could get some hats made. No, I seriously, I think Councillor Arnott really nailed it. Can we afford not to do this? And I think the answer is quite clear. We must invest. And look, from the sport community, Sport Manawatu, and I acknowledge they're in the crowd here today, and also Sport New Zealand, there's been widespread approval on this. We've fully consulted and with the user groups, and I think 5 of the councillors were at those groups with basketball Manawatu, volleyball Manawatu, badminton Manawatu, table tennis Manawatu. A lot of other users were there, and event providers, and some of their NSOs as well, their national sporting organisations. And there was widespread approval. So I'm thinking this is quite a popular thing to do. So the opportunities are immense. There's naming rights, there's some external funding for this, the running costs are less, and actually we give literally millions back to the budget. And I don't know many times we've done that. So that alone is impressive. But look, it is the best option, and I just want to acknowledge the staff because they've really hunted down every possible saving, but also where this fits into the greater arena master plan. And look, it was funny that Dave Charnley's sitting in the gallery here, but he put up an original concept of a dome. I don't know whether he knew something, but that was in the original master plan, those that can remember. And I thought, oh, that looks pretty cool. And here we are. So I hope you can support it. It is a bit of it will put us on the map. It has so many benefits for us economically as well. And as Councillor Bowen said, that we're getting chased by a number now because they've clicked on that Palmerston North does actually do this stuff really, really well. So let's continue to do it well by providing some much needed facilities. Thank you. We will vote. And that is passed, 10 votes for and 4 against. All right. Because we have a couple of external people just waiting for us, I know you want a couple. We're just going to quickly go to our Nature Calls quarterly update, and I'll ask, this is number 13 on our order paper, it's page 271, and I'll ask Mike Monaghan to come down. He's our manager of Three Waters, and I think we've got Mayor Andy. We will break straight after this. So we've got Mayor Andy from Rangitikei's here. Right, okay. They're welcome to come in. Okay, over to you.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Mike Monaghan, Te Wingworth. Good afternoon, your worship and councillors. Brings me pleasure to present to you the quarterly report for Nature Calls, the wastewater treatment plant upgrade project. We've had a few conversations just recently about this project, so I'm happy to take the paper as read and open the floor for any questions. Thank you.
Councillor Naylor.
But just a quick question that arose at one of the sessions recently. Some of the feedback that we're hearing from the community are the community proposing other options other than the two options that we're consulting on. Is there the opportunity for us to consider other options that are outside of those two options?
Thank you, councillor. I guess that the optioneering phase is behind us now, but it's ultimately councillor's decision. So I'd have to go back through the chair and leave that question with the chair as to whether or not councillors wish to revisit anything. It would have some serious impacts on the deliverability and the timeline of the project, but ultimately this is councillor's decision.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. That's our questions gone. So recommendation to council that council receive the report titled Nature Calls Wastewater Treatment Plant Upgrade Project Quarterly Report presented today, 27th of May 2026. I'm happy to move. Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Look, thank you, Mike. It's an ongoing project which will be with us still for some time before CD Water takes over. So, ask for your support in approving this, please. Okay, that is passed 12 votes for and 1 against. All right, we'll break now. Just we have, we'll come back in 15 minutes at 10:02. We have a workshop that's scheduled with, so we might adjourn the meeting to do the workshop. We have guests, other guests here, so we should do that around our draft, our views on the draft statement of expectations for CD Water. So we'll adjourn till after the workshop.